Hi all, Aaron from Optimistic Futurist here. When I chose the name Futurist, I meant it more just in the colloquial term of someone who thinks about the future, someone who takes in a larger scale of thinking about how things all come together, society at large, technology, how we can improve our situation. But I didn't really know too much about an in depth definition of the term futurist. I had heard this guy talked about a little bit, and that's probably what most people think of when they hear the term futurist. When you look it up on Google, you'll find a lot of different firms and people claiming themselves as pragmatic futurist who they'll come and give a talk and they do speeches and consulting. They try and show businesses and the general audience at large how they think that their preferred version of the future should come about, and that is actually if we think about the term futurist as it relates to futurology or future studies, that is what persons who practice that look at the trends in technology and global society, economics. It's a whole bunch of different disciplines on a large time scale. So there's a lot of people that look at trends and all of that sort of data, but futurists are supposed to look at data in a large time scale and discover the three P's and any W's. The first P is what is possible. So all possibilities based on the trends that we have, society as it stands today, all of the technology and economics we have, every piece of the puzzle, as it were, is brought together and they list out everything that is possible. And then we come to the second P, which is what is probable, so the most likely outcome of all of the possibilities that they've been able to determine or think up, imagine that are possible. They whittle those down to what is probable, the most likely things to happen. And this is where the W comes in. So wildcards are super low probability, but high impact. We have just lived through one of these in our lifetimes. We've lived through a fairly hectic wildcard, being the pandemic. A lot of people were saying that we were quite due for it, and they could technically have used those futurist modelings to say, well, based on things in the past, we were due for one to come along, and it was a high impact event with not the hugest probability, but low probability, but it can still happen. And then the last P is the preferable possibilities. So the preferable future, and this is where the pragmatic futurists separate a little bit from, I would call them possibly the idealistic futurists. The pragmatic futurists take what we already have, our society as it is, capitalism, all of those guys. They try and shape a world in which they are better off, in which their clients and their countries and societal bracket, they try and look after those people and make sure that is, and to be fair, maybe I'm doing them a disservice. Maybe there's a lot of pragmatic futurists who are trying to make humanity as a whole better, but I feel like the idealistic futurists, the guys who think we're going to crack nuclear fusion and have teleporters and warp drives and kind of moving into the era of science fiction, whilst especially the early writers of futurology in the early 1900s, around the 20s and 30s, were thinking of the space odyssey and video telephones and the Jetsons and stuff like that, like these fantastical sci-fi things, flying cars, things like this that would human innovation and our discovery and creativity would elevate everyone, and we would all rise together and live in this utopia where misery and poverty and things like that were completely abolished. The early futurology was actually based on the book called Utopia, which actually changed the word's meaning completely. Previously, utopia was based on Greek, which meant no place or nowhere. But now we all think of utopia as this place where no one is downtrodden and everything is perfect. And that is that idealistic futurist view. And I hope with this channel to be kind of somewhere in the middle, maybe. I am hoping for an idealistic version of our future, but I am also need to be a realist in that, you know, these are fairly unprecedented times we're living through at the moment with the digital age, social media, pandemic, rife, social inequality, and societal pressures, climate crisis that we're currently going through, and how do we get out of that? So those will be the things that I'll be focusing on in my specific studies, and how we can use technology and the trends that I can see coming through, because it is easy with all of these pressures to kind of get a bit doomer-pilled, feel like things are never going to get better. I have 2 small kids, and I worry about the future for them, and I'm hoping for myself to at least put into the universe, if nothing less, that there is light, there is hope, and be optimistic about our possible futures. Thank you so much if you've made it to the end of this ramble. I didn't mean to go quite so off tangent there. Hit me up in the comments if you can think of anything, or you know of any awesome things that I should look at. The first couple of things I want to look at in terms of this futurist space, aside from just covering the as I learn stuff things, there's going to be a few more of those. I've got a money and wealth coming up. I want to have a look at socialism and leftism, and then probably also the fossil fuel versus renewables. And then I really want to get into some specific technologies that may be able to help us get out of this kind of spiral that we're in. There's been amazing things coming out of Germany in terms of fusion reactors. I know that the Japanese are starting up their nuclear things again. So yeah, it's all happening, and I want to just keep moving forward in hopefully a positive light. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.